What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 12 of Just Chris Podcast. Now, if you're tuned in this week on the audio version, what's up? But if you're tuned in this week on the video version on YouTube, what's up? I'm happy to announce that after 11 other episodes, I finally got it together and I'm recording these and I'm going to put them on YouTube. So, that being said, I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked to be doing it. Now, the episodes won't be published on YouTube like the same day that I publish the audio version, but they'll be up shortly after. And this week, you guys are probably going to guess you're talking finance. No, unfortunately, that's not the case. As much as I'd love to hit on Robinhood, GameStop, Wall Street bets, unfortunately, I'm not doing that today. Now, the topic I do want to talk about has been requested from quite a few people. They've actually, sent me emails at justchrispodcast@gmail.com, you know the deal. But they requested to hear about my time as a swimmer, my time as a collegiate athlete. I've also gotten, a lot of other requests for different topics. And as much as I would love to get into those, I'm trying to stick to the 30-minute mark here with the podcast from here on out. So that being said, we're just gonna start it up. We're just gonna get right into it. Now, I've been swimming competitively for the past 14 years. Well, I retired last February. But before that, up until then, I'd swam for 14 years. And growing up, when I first learned how to swim, I hated it. I hated it. I hated going to swim lessons. I hated going to a cold pool. I hated walking through the cold locker rooms. Every Saturday, I couldn't stand it. Now, I don't really remember much about swim lessons growing up. But one thing that has kind of stuck with me, once I finished with swim lessons, the instructor told my parents, they said, yeah, like Chris is a talented swimmer. Like he could take it somewhere one day if he follows through with it. Now, I didn't really hear that side of the story until like a few years ago. So to think like I've gone all this time and, this lady believed in me, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. And once I learned how to swim and swim lessons, I really didn't do any competitive swimming up until a few years later. It's just like the average, like go to the pool in the summer, go down the slide and off the diving board. And actually, one little funny story I have about that is when I was younger and we'd go to the pool, I would go off the diving board, I'd go down the slide, and I would just float on the water. I would pretend to drown. Now, I really can't remember this all that well, but like from what my parents have told me, the lifeguards hated it. What lifeguard wouldn't hate a kid that's fake drowning? Yeah, so that was me as a child, and when I first began swimming competitively, it was when my family moved from Akron, Ohio to the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina. And that summer going into 3rd grade, 4th grade, my family had registered me and my sisters to swim on the summer swim team. And the pool in my neighborhood, literally a 4-minute walk. So super close. Our cousins were doing it with us as well. And it was a good time. I really enjoyed doing it. And from there, I swam summer team probably for the next like 3 or 4 years. And summer meets were always like the best part because, you're there with all your teammates, there with the homies. Everyone's just hanging out. It's warm outside. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the summer swim team. What I didn't enjoy so much were the practices. Now, I can't really say many athletes enjoy practice like all the time. Me personally, no, definitely did not. But there was something about it that I stuck with it. I had that hidden little talent that I only showed out every summer. And it wasn't until like 6th grade where I decided on my own and said, okay, like I'm ready to step it up. I kind of showed out in the summer swim team. Your boy got like high point of the summer. Ton of little awards at the end of each summer. I did well. And I was ready to take it to the next step with swimming for a club team or swimming for a year-round team. And with that comes, a lot of things that you need to do. You're required, maybe not required, but like if you're paying for it, you kind of have to. You have to go to all these practices every single day after school. We have practices, we have weights, meets almost like every other weekend or so, a couple times a month. And I did that for about a year. And I didn't mind it. I kind of liked it, but the only thing that I liked about it again were just the meets. I loved racing, and the feeling of beating people is untouchable. But I only did that for about a year. I just had a super hard time wanting to go to practice every single day after school. I mean, like I said, like the pool was in my neighborhood, and so was my middle school and elementary school. So everything's just like a walk away. So I could literally just like get there in an instant. But I hated it. I hated going to practice. And I think because the practices weren't easy. I mean, in sixth grade, like you're pushing yourself to the limit here. And being like in the youngest group on the team, it's super intimidating with all the older kids swimming in the lanes next to you, practicing with them. And I don't know, I wasn't a big fan of it. And after that, I decided to kind of step away from swimming a little bit, kind of decided to tone it down. And that's when, starting in seventh grade, I wanted to try other sports because, yeah, maybe like I had potential with swimming, but maybe I had potential in other things. So in middle school, I played football, basketball, ran track, and I wasn't bad at them. Well, football, I was okay at football. I was still a starter, but football wasn't really my thing. So seventh, eighth grade did that, and then when I got to high school, or even before high school, the decision came where I had to decide either I'm gonna swim or I'm gonna play basketball. And growing up, my family's life like revolved around basketball. My dad was a college basketball player. He coached high school basketball growing up, and up until like sixth or seventh grade, he coached basketball. So basketball is huge in our family. And I made the decision that I was going to stick with swimming through high school because swimming had more of a potential to get me somewhere farther post high school. And it did. Now, I think if I would have stuck with basketball, I think with like a lot of training and a lot of like one-on-one practices, things like that, I definitely think I could have made it to a college with that, but that's all hypothetical situations here, and I'm not going to get into that. I'm sticking with swimming, and that was the decision that I made. In high school swimming, it was fun. At that time, I was back swimming on the club team. I was back swimming year round, and then high school season lasted from October to February. That's kind of a long season. It was tough sometimes. Yeah. um, and when doing that, sorry, when doing that, not only was I swimming club and high school, no, not only was I swimming high school, but I was swimming club team as well. And then it was a requirement each week where you had to go to at least one high school practice if you attended the rest of the practices with the club team. So every week, it's club practice and then high school practice. Maybe some days like I would double up on it. And it was tough. And I really didn't like pick it up with swimming until like my junior year of high school. Now, up until then, I did very well in the pool. I did very well against competition. I made it to the state championships every year in high school. We placed in the state. We did we did good. And it wasn't until, like I said, my junior year where it kind of clicked in my head like, okay, this could possibly take me somewhere. Because once I finished up with conference or state championships junior year, I started getting emails. Now I remember the first one I got, I was sitting in Spanish class and I get an email, I look down at my phone and it's a school reaching out to me, wanting to learn more about me and my swimming with the potential that I could be recruited to swim at that college. Now looking back, the first school that emailed me was actually a school I followed through with. At the time, I didn't know that I was going to stick with that school. I looked at tons of other schools. I went on official visits to places. But the one that stood out the most was, that first email, that first school that reached out to me. And it's kind of crazy looking back on it. And after that, once I started getting more emails from coaches and recruiting websites, I was like, okay, I can kind of take this serious. Like, I can take it somewhere. So from spring junior year up until like end of fall sophomore year or senior year, swimming got a little serious. And in the summers, like in between the seasons, we had summer training at a pool like 15 minutes down the road from me. 6 a.m. practices followed by weights. And then in the afternoons, we had like a 3 or 4 o'clock practice. So, it's a lot of time. And one thing that, I think is hilarious, and at this point, like my mom thinks it's pretty funny. When I would drive to those practices in the morning, I would make the decision every morning if I'm driving there and, I'm feeling a little too tired, I was too tired for practice. If the thought crossed my mind that I was too tired, I wasn't going to go to practice. But I couldn't just turn the car around and go home. Like I was the first one up in the house. I got up at like 5:15, made a quick snack, and got on the road. So I wasn't going to turn around and go home and go back to bed. What did I do? About 5 minutes from the pool, there's a couple fast food restaurants. And on the days where I decided that I was a little too tired, I'd pull into the Biscuitville parking lot, park my Jeep, and I would take a nice 2-hour nap. And I did this at least 2 to 3 times a week. At least. So I really, I wasn't a big fan of the morning practices. And it's crazy because all through college, we had 2 a days. We had morning practices at 6. So, I really couldn't avoid it. But to continue with that, going into my senior year, I was ready to swim. Like I was ready to do well. All of us on the team were talking about we're chasing titles, we're chasing state championships, and we were ready for it. And then November of that year, I signed my national letter of intent stating that I was going to that one school that reached out to me. And it was official. It was kind of like unreal, like, wow, this is actually happening. And after that, like I still had 3 months of the season left. So I still had 3 months of hard training to get to where I wanted to be before going into college. And I would say like the time definitely paid off, or like all the practices definitely paid off. That year we made it to the state championships again, but a relay I was on, we finished second in the state. So close to first. Prelims, we finished first. We were seeded first going in. We finished second, but that's okay. I'm not losing sleep over that. And then in addition to that, my individual events, I placed very well also. Top 10, no flex. But, I felt super good about that. And like ending the season at that point was definitely like ending on a high note. And I was ready to swim in college. And then going into that summer again, it was the same thing. If I'm too tired to go to practice, I'm sleeping in the Biscuitville parking lot. And that's just kind of how it went. I'd wake up from my little 2-hour nap at 8 o'clock, and then I would leave the parking lot and drive to the pool in my neighborhood and go work like 9 to 3 or whenever. And, for someone that's getting ready to swim collegiately, is that collegiately? Someone getting ready to swim like at a collegiate level, you would expect them to be fully preparing for that. Me, not so much the case. That summer, I don't think I swam a single meet, bare minimum practices, just kind of pissed my way through it up until leaving for school in August. And I would say when I got to school in August, I was in shape. Like I was in decent shape, enough to the point where I wasn't going to die in the preseason workouts. I came close, but I didn't die. And preseason workouts was a game changer. Like so freaking hard every afternoon for 2 weeks. And it got to the point where like I could barely walk. And I lived on the 3rd floor of my dorm. Like killer. And all the freshmen were going through the same thing. And then when preseason ended, that's when it got kind of real. Like, oh shoot, we thought that was hard. It's only going to get worse from here. And it did. In a good way, I would say. Now, the difference between college swimming and high school swimming for me was like night and day. It's like it was a whole new sport for me when I got to college. And I think one of the main reasons for that was, how the practices were set up. Now, with the club team growing up, those practices, like, they weren't so specific for like sprinters or distance or people who swam specific stroke events. It was kind of like training you to be like a well-rounded swimmer. Like, you could compete at all different levels, like all different types of events, ranging from the 50 free to the 1650. So it kind of prepared you for that. But when I got to school, I was assigned with the sprinter group. And let me tell you, I absolutely loved it. I felt bad for the distance swimmers. I still do. Like, the distance swimmers, they definitely have it much worse than the sprinters. And I'll say that. Now, if you're a distance swimmer listening to this, like, you're tough. You are tough because sprinters, they get out of practice early sometimes, like a quarter of the yards. It was great. And also, the way the practices were written was so different. And my coach in college, incredible the way she wrote the sets. Like, everything felt so specific to me. Being a sprinter, being a breaststroker, it just worked out perfect. It was kind of unreal. And that's the one thing that I absolutely loved. And something that kind of stands out about with those hard practices, very similar to life. Like, if you're going through a hard time with anything, like, you're going to want to be surrounded with the people that are close to you, the people you love, and they'll help you. You'll all get through it together. And with swimming, it was the exact same thing. Because, like, not only are you just swimming 200 flies in practice, but you're doing it with all of your, like, closest friends. Like, you spend so much time with your teammates when in college that every practice, like, it was a lot of fun in practice, because we'd get to the wall after a hard set and we would bitch about it, but, like, we were all in it together. Like, we're all there to swim together. Um, and it's kind of like, with college, like, being recruited to swim in college, it was kind of like a full-time job, and you're getting paid to be there. So if you're going to be there, like, you might as well put in the work. And I did. But it was incredibly hard at times. Like, more than once was there a situation where I just wanted to give up. I just wanted to quit. I don't want to get up at 6 a.m. and walk across campus in the snow. Well, actually, like 5:30, and walk across campus in the snow and then go jump in a cold pool. Again, it was unavoidable, but you got to do what you got to do. And if I could go back right now, like, and redo all of it again, 100%, I would. Seriously. Now, that's my answer for today. Ask me tomorrow, it might be a different answer. But I'd say, like, 8 times out of 10, I'm going to go with yes. I would do it in a heartbeat. In college swimming, like I said, like, so different than growing up. The meets were different. Everything was just set up different. And I loved it. Like, it felt like this was the first time in my swimming career where I felt like I was actually, like, pushing myself to the limit in practices. Because, as I said, in high school, I kind of pissed my way through it, and it got me to, where I was trying to get. But now that I was there, like, I might as well put in the work. And one of the crazy things, like, I came into that school on my recruiting visit, my official visit, looked at the record board, and I had one goal in mind when it came to swimming and it came to college. I was going to get my name on that record board before I graduated. Now, the deal with that was I didn't do it until my last year. Actually, my last meet. And not only did I get one record, 2 records, 2 relays, but I'm on the board. I'm on the board twice. 3 times close, but, just a little shy of the time there. But still, 2 times I achieved my goal, and it was unreal. And my last meet as a swimmer, oh man, it was tough. It was super hard. Especially knowing, like, once I finished that weekend, once I finished that 4-day meet, I was done forever. But I still came, like, busting my ass to get there, and it paid off. It definitely paid off. And like I said, I was a breaststroker, and my main events in breaststroke were the 100 and 200 breast. Every meet, I'd swim the 100 and 200 breast, maybe a little bit of freestyle, definitely IM. And it was tough because I'm going to say it. And I don't care what anyone says. The 200 breast is by far the hardest event in swimming. You may have a different opinion, but you're wrong. 200 breast, incredibly tough, and I had to swim it every single week. Every week. I don't know how I did it, but I made it through it. But there was never a time where, I was comfortable with swimming the 200 breast. Now with the 100 breast, like, that was my event. I love the 100 breast, incredibly hard, but it's over so quick. Like, you're done in like a minute. 200 breast, that's 8 laps pushing it and finishing like 2 to 2:30. So a kind of long race. And at conference, my senior year, I swam the 100 breast, and we had prelims and finals each day. We had 4 different days, each one like different strokes, different events. And 100 and 200 breasts always came on the last 2 days. And at that point in the meet, like, you're incredibly tired. Like, you just want to go home. You just want the meet to be over with. And it comes to that point in the meet for me where I'm getting kind of tired. I kind of want to go home. But, I was there. I had a job to do, and I had a goal to accomplish. So I might as well give it my all. Now, prelims that Thursday or that Friday morning with the 100 breast went well. I got to where I was wanting to be, got in the heat that I wanted to be in. But when I came back that afternoon, it's like a train hit me. That I was so incredibly beat going into that event that day. I was doing everything it took to just get my heart rate up, like get pumped, get in the zone. I was slamming bang energies, eating the energy chews, like all of this stuff to compete at a high level. And I did. I did well, and my goal for that event, my whole life, my whole swimming career was get under a minute and get the school record. So I dive in, I start this 100 breast, and everything felt great. You just have that feeling where like things are going really well, and you kind of think you're going to get it. Unfortunately, I didn't. I got to the wall, nearly half dead, looked up at the time, and I was off. I didn't get the record. 4 years of competing, I didn't get it. And that was super, super hard for me. Because like I trained like all this time, and you still come up short. But on the bright side of that, at that point in the meet, I already had 2 records. My relays had already set 2 records. So I couldn't be like that hurt. Like I'd already accomplished the goal of getting my name on the record board. And it just would have been like, a little boost if I would have gotten that 100 breast record. I didn't. But, after every event with swimming, you're required to warm down. And sometimes, like, I'll admit it, like, I duck the warm down, do the bare minimum, 100, 200 yards, and just kind of like float around. But after this event, I kind of had this like feeling of emptiness. I don't know. It was tough to explain. And, I don't think I've ever warmed down as much as I did after that event. And I swam super slow, and I just like had a million things going through my head. And I just wanted to keep swimming until, everything cleared up and I felt a little better. And I swam for probably like 45 minutes after I finished that race. And God, it was so hard. I mean, just kind of like a kick to the teeth. But I still had another day of racing. I still had one more, and I had the 200 breast. Again, prelims went well, going to finals that night, and I'm not as tired as the night before. I'm not all that happy that I'm swimming the 200 breast, but I'm in finals the last day, the last meet of my career. And let me tell you, I have never swam a 200 breast that was as hard as that event. It's like the worst of the worst. Like, it was like swimming through syrup or like, I don't know, Jello. That's what it felt like. And it was, the hardest race I've ever swam in. Now, the thing with that, when I finished the last 5 yards, I was there the last 5 yards. This is something I always look back on. If I come into a challenge, anything that I don't think I can do, anything I don't think I can accomplish since like retiring from swimming, I always look back at this. And I tell myself, if you can make it those last 5 yards, of the hardest event ever, you can make it through just about anything. So constantly, the 200 breaths, the last 5 yards is my motivation. And I finished the race. I got to where I wanted to be. The time was good. It wasn't anything terrible. I didn't add time, nothing like that. But just the feeling of being done after that event was wild. I I just I couldn't believe it. Like all this time that I'd spent, and then it's just done like that. And it was sad. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like it was definitely sad going through. But I was ready for it. I was ready, kind of hang the goggles up, hang up the speedo, and, take the next step in life. Now, usually with postseason after our conference, we get about a month off, and then we go back after spring break and we have postseason training. And postseason training, the best thing since sliced bread. Not only where the practice is easy, but coaches were super laid back, no pressure. It just wasn't as serious. Now, we were still it was still kind of serious, but we'd be at the end of the lanes, joking around, messing around. And coach was just cool with it. She would be there dicking around with us too. And it was great. That was one of the things I love the most about my coach. She could dick around when she wanted to with us, but then she could be incredibly serious and straight to the point when needed to be. So unfortunately, with everything that's kind of unfolded within this past year, we get back from spring break, getting ready for postseason workouts, and we get sent home from school. For the year, my senior year ended right there. My senior year ended mid-March. And I don't know, it was just kind of it was a super shitty feeling because typically, when it kind of kicks in, the year is over, when we have postseason workouts and conclude the year with our athletic awards, which is all of campus, all of the athletes on campus get together for this event, give out awards, great time. But this year or last year, that just wasn't the case. So I kind of felt I ended on kind of a bad note in a way. I didn't get to finish everything that I wanted to. And that's the same way with everything when it comes to school that year. Didn't get to finish the classes, didn't have all the time to do what I wanted to do, didn't get to spend that extra time with friends. It sucked. It really sucked. But looking back, I can say that swimming was the best time in my life so far. Made tons of friends, learned a lot about not only myself, but the sport, strokes, all of that. And I owe a ton of it to not only my coaches, but my teammates as well. Because as I mentioned earlier in the episode, if you're going through something hard, you're going to want your closest friends and family there with you. And if it weren't for them, if it weren't for my teammates day after day in practice, 6 a.m., 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't think it would have been possible. Really. And that's even the case going home and training on my own. Because you're just you're not willing to push yourself as hard as you are in practice with your teammates. You have no one to race in practice. None of that. So the teammates, all of my friends that I made throughout the year swimming, unreal. The crazy thing about that is going into senior year, we had 2 senior guys, me and one other guy. And at this point in the year, or at this point really in the collegiate, my collegiate season, whatever, my time in college, me and this other guy, we'd grown together so much. By far, one of my closest friends, can hit him up for anything. He was there for me. Now, it's crazy because coming in freshman year, we had 9 freshmen. 9 freshmen. And we finished with 2. And year after year, it was so hard. Seeing your teammates, seeing some of your best friends that you spent the most time with leave the school and not swim again. And that was tough. But to finish strong with that one other senior, it was such a great feeling. Such a great feeling. And I really feel like we served as kind of like motivators for the guys team, because like if we can make it through it, the rest of the freshmen, the rest of the sophomores, the rest of the juniors, they can make it through it as well. Like we were there to show that like we survived 4 years of swimming under our coach. Incredible coaching staff, by the way. Like they're what made one of the reasons that my college experience and swimming experience was so great. And like I said, like I cannot thank them enough because I learned so much. Um, but it's kind of what it is. At this point in time, I'm trying to get in the pool here and there. I'm trying to swim. I'm low key. I'm trying to hold it together for this episode because I'm kind of in my feels about it. It's a little sad looking back. But I'm just trying to stay in shape. Still trying to get in the pool. I still got it. My 50 free still looking kind of nice. Trying to see me in the 50-yard, 100-yard breaststroke. What's up? 200-yard. I'm never swimming another 200-yard breaststroke again in my life. And that's on my mama. But that's what I have for today's episode. That's what I had to share with you guys. I really enjoyed this kind of episode where it's more personal. As much as I love talking finance, as much as I love talking about a highlighted food of the week or what I did that weekend, it's like these stories that I enjoy telling. And I'm definitely going to continue with it in the future. Like, I definitely want to continue sharing, like, personal stories about me, about my life growing up, because I want you guys to get an understanding of it as well. Like, I wanted to put you guys in my shoes in these situations. Now, if you don't want to be in my shoes, like, I understand. But that's what I have for this week's episode. Thank you all for listening. And as always, you know where to find me. You know how to get a hold of me. And it's justchrispodcast@gmail.com. Now, I will include that in the description, as always. But if you want to leave me a voice message, you want to leave me a little something recording, that will be in the description as well. You just click the link, record it with your microphone, and then I'll receive it, and I can put that in the episode. So give that a shot. Let's see what you got. Until then, guys, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys next week.